The Minister of Finance, Shimi, yesterday afternoon tabled the 2021-2022 national budget under the theme Boosting Resilience and Recovery. With analysis on the budget and if it speaks to our current economic needs and stance, I'm joined by Johan, corporate tax partner from PriceWaterhouseCoopers, Namibia. Good morning, sir, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Thank you, Denver.
So what happened yesterday, amongst others, is that the Minister tabled the 2021-2022 budget totaling an amount of 67.9 billion Namibia dollars, which amounts to a decrease of about 4.2 billion compared to the same period in 2020-2021. What is your take on that matter, sir?
I think it was expected. Even in last year's budget, we already saw that the Minister told us that there will be a reduction in terms of SACU revenue, and that was expected given the COVID pandemic. Also, with the number of jobs that was lost, a lot of employment taxes were lost during the current year, and also companies didn't make as much money because of the lockdown. So it was definitely expected that it was reduced. So yes, that's pretty much in line with our expectations.
Bearing those reductions in the country's revenue in mind, especially as far as it relates to our SACU pool income, but also as far as taxes are concerned, what does it mean for the country as a whole?
So we're still budgeting for a deficit. What the Minister has done well is to curb that deficit and bring it down from what it was last year. Not significantly, but it is going to estimate at about 8.6%. A lot of people are asking the question, okay, does this mean if revenue is going down that we are going to have to pay more taxes to make that up? I think that's one view on it. I don't think that's a long-term sustainable solution. We rather have to focus on the expenses. And if you look at the expense budget for the year, it also came down. A lot of it came down by 8-9%. So if we can rather focus on things like expenditure, if you look at how the budget is made up of, there's 8.5 billion for interest, there's 53.9 billion for operational budget, and only 5.6 billion for development budget. So if we can do something about the operational budget, it wouldn't necessitate an increase in taxes just to curb the deficit.
Speaking about this pursuit of doing something about our operational budget, we do know that consolidation efforts have been underway for a number of years now. Are we actually able to do more?
It's a difficult question, Denver, because I think one can always do more. The problem that the Minister has is now to draw that balance between how do we keep growing and where do we cut the expenses. And a lot of people have been crying out for the reduction of personnel expenditure. I think that creates its own problems if you just start getting rid of people in the government sector. That's not the only solution. So in the speech there's an ongoing review of this personnel expenditure, the wage bill, looking at things like net freeze of vacancies, looking at the option of voluntary early retirement, but it all has to be weighed up in terms of can we really afford it.
Notwithstanding the fact that our budget deficit has been reduced to about 8.6% this time around, is it sustainable and how will we finance that budget deficit ultimately?
So with the debt levels going up to, if you followed the speech, you will note that there was a 70.4% debt to GDP, which a couple of years ago everybody was crying out, please don't go above 60%. We're at 70% now. And what's even worse is we're expecting that to go to about 85% by 2025, 2026. So definitely an alarming thing to take note of. I don't think we're the only country in the world that's suffering though. I think if you look at the global trend, a lot of countries in the world are under pressure in terms of their debt. It doesn't make it right, but at least we're not on our own. I think, as I mentioned, if we can increase the amount of revenue that we collected just by administering it better. So with NAMRA coming in, for instance, on the 7th of April, it was announced yesterday, the official launch should be the 7th of April. If there's more administration and we can enforce certain things like transfer pricing, some of the mentions in the speech yesterday was about making sure that people give proof of their withholding taxes before they are allowed to deduct it, which is a fantastic incentive for compliance, because a lot of people will try and not pay the withholding tax, but still take a big deduction for income tax. So that will force some revenue into the system.
There's consensus that we have no alternative as far as certain spending is concerned, but ultimately it's about the quality of the spending. So let's look at a few of the priority areas which mention was made of yesterday. Now, the Minister announced an allocation of 23.2% of the budget to the Ministry of Education, compared to 13.6% to Health and Social Services. Given the prevailing circumstances, was that to be expected?
I think it's been in the budget all the years. That remains our top spending, and education is important to take Namibia forward, to make sure we give opportunities to our youth. So education is definitely going to be there almost in every budget speech. I think that was expected. On the health and social services, yes, of course, given the pandemic, given the vaccination plans, the rollout of the vaccines to the rest of the population, it was expected that a significant amount will be spent on health and social services. Something that's not, we didn't talk about now, but the Ministry of Finance also received quite a big allocation. But that is for instance, funding CIMA's Development Bank of Namibia. There's some allocation towards the establishment of NAMRA, about 79 million. So they're also one of the, let's call them the top earners. Yeah.
In brief, Johan, what mention was made of any tax and administrative reforms yesterday afternoon?
So a lot of the previously proposed tax proposals that was mentioned a couple of years ago were given some clarity on. So if we just take a look at some of the taxes that's bound to come, that will be the withholding tax on local dividends. So currently, if a company declares a dividend, there was no withholding tax for your Namibian residents. Now that's bound to come in. So all of the tax proposals that was mentioned is due to come in around the 22-23 budget year or financial year. So that was one. There was a 15% VAT on management fees of listed asset managers. There was a mention of a potential reduction in the company tax rate for non-mining companies, which we will get more clarity on during the mid-year budget review. In terms of other policy reforms, I already mentioned NAMRA. That's there. There was a mention about the NEEB and the Namibia Investment Promotion Bill. That's going to be tabled during this year and hopefully finalized. Also some mention about the special economic zone that will be there. It replaces sort of our previous export processing zone, which has now been scrapped from the Act.
Thank you.
So yes.
Thank you very much. We've run out of time, unfortunately. Just in conclusion, would you say, and you're not only an expert, also a budget veteran over the last couple of years, would you say that this document speaks to the theme of boosting resilience and ultimately recovery?
So I think it was a careful balance between cutting revenue and expenditure, and we're definitely on the way to recovery. And one could see that with the efforts that was put in making the deficit less. The debt is obviously worrisome. One thing that I would have liked to see more of it, and I think in the previous, earlier on the program, James Manupe mentioned that they've got the Project Preparation Fund. And the worrisome thing there is that we've only got about 96 million allocated for PPP projects. Now, that's not a lot of money. If we see it as about developing, if we see it as about growing the economy, we really need more money than that to spend on PPPs. Of course, foreign direct investment remains one of our biggest sources of growing the economy. So I think in the future, if there's more policy certainty, we can definitely expect revenue to increase, and that will ultimately solve our problems.
Equally, the proof of the pudding ultimately lies in the tabling of the midterm budget later this year to see exactly what happened in the end.
That's right, yes.
Your brief final remarks this morning, Johan.
No, I think overall we are happy with the budget as it is. I think the Minister did a good job of balancing under very difficult circumstances. And we're looking forward to the tax changes and to the policy changes that's coming through.
Thank you very much for your time and sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
That was PwC's Johan now talking to us about the budget that was tabled yesterday afternoon by Finance Minister Ipumbushimi under the theme Boosting Resilience and Recovery. We're back